Hello again everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is all about the FSS 727 for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So then everybody, a very warm welcome back to the channel. Today we've got the FSS Boeing 727 releasing imminently for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've got a very special preview to enjoy today. So share your thoughts throughout the journey, hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll get stuck into it. We've got a great route for today. As you can see then folks, we've got this lovely Aero Sucre livery here in Bogota, Colombia, and we're about to load up some cargo. Using GSX, it's got its own integrated official GSX profile within the add-on, and the exterior model, as you can see, looks pretty cool. Little teaser of the lights in the flight deck there as well. The nav lights reflecting off the ground, looking pretty good. And quite a few liveries available for this, based on operators around the world, including DHL, FedEx, UPS, and lots more for this 727 freighter. So we're going to go ahead and get all of the cargo and the bags loaded on for today's flight. Here from Bogota to a really cool airport, which is called Antonio Nariño International, Sierra Kilo Papa Sierra. It's one of the most difficult approaches in the region, and you'll see why in a short while. So we can have a little look in the cargo area here, this little hatch which is toggleable on and off. You can also control the door using the switches here, that main cargo door over there. And while GSX has a little go at firing everything up, we walk into the flight deck for the very first time. Look at this. Super old school. 3-person operation here in the flight deck. Flight engineer sat here in his little station, and 2 pilots as well. So they've introduced some things that were going to help. They're going to help us basically deal with the workload throughout the flight, because there is a whole lot of stuff to do, like there is on Concorde as well, for example. There's too much for one person, a flight simmer, to manage. We'll go through that throughout the journey. We're also going to use the old school INS, the CIVA INS, but they've also got support for the GNS 530, the PMS GTN 750, and the TDS GTN-XI. In addition to this INS, there's a GNS XLS flight management system that's going to come in a few weeks from now as well, apparently. And if you're wondering about release, it's going to be released for €40 or $42 US, which is really exciting. And it's going to be released publicly on the 6th of August around 8 AM UTC, so that's 9 AM UK time, based on wherever you are in the world. So instead of having a tablet, what we've got here is a rather handy clipboard instead. So it's a version of a tablet more akin to the time of this aircraft. And a couple of different options here. The first tab being aircraft, allowing you to do various things like connect your ground power, sort out your panel states, and change your navigational equipment and your metrics or imperial units. Moving across to pre-flight, you put your SimBrief username in here. And what that does is it allows you to pull in the load via SimBrief, but it doesn't import it directly from SimBrief. What it does is it takes the numbers basically, and from there you press play on both of those to load the various sort of cargo and fuel loads. And you can see there a live stat below showing the cargo currently being loaded. On the pre-flight tab then, having had a look at that, we go to Takeoff tab, and we can refresh the current wind. We've got the current QNH, and we've got different options here. There is only data for flap 15, so if you change any of these settings, it will only give you the flap 15 limits on the middle of the screen there. And with this, performance and V-speeds get calculated, and you can set your EPA and trim. We're using 1-4 right for departure today. So we can set EPA and trim, and we can set our speeds. You saw the bugs move there, and that is because I've used a different function we'll go through the rest of it in a short while. They've added Navigraph sort of integration to the aeroplane as well, so we're at SKBO and we can load in the charts like so. So we've got access to some charts, which is rather nice, and you can press the plus there to increase all the tabs and add either more aerodrome charts, or you can add different airports. And to close it, you could just click the clip there. There's also a little mobile phone here. If you click that, this is where we get the crew manager. So I appreciate there's so much information thrown at you guys at the moment. Hopefully you can appreciate how detailed this is and the things they've thought of, and it's coming across well. The crew manager then is on this phone, and this is how we're going to manage our flows throughout the journey. The bottom half is automatic monitoring, so there's 5 different items here which I've turned on. They're off by default, but I've turned them on, and what it does is it means that if, in effect, a lot of the station at the back here is going to be automatically done for me, because hey, that's the job of the flight engineer, isn't it, after all? So things like the fuel heat, pack temperature and all that have to be carefully managed throughout the flight, going to be done by the flight engineer. I've also pressed pre-flight check, and that's given us power to the aircraft. It's done all the fire tests, given us the bells and the whistles, and we've got the APU started as well. So we're in a good state at the moment. We're going to then focus on the INS and charts, pre-flight and all that sort of thing. So let's hide that for now. Familiarity wise, it's a very basic flight deck. It's a very hands-on aeroplane as well, for what it's worth. So if you like the Airbus, you might find you'll struggle in this. All the kind of standard display instruments that we should expect are all here. We've got the altitude selector there for the autopilot system, on the top left in the centre, landing gear on the right, and then we've got 3 throttles, 3 engine cutoffs, 3 reversers. We've got the trim wheels, speed brake, flaps, and then we've got our comms, radio and nav down there. So fairly self-explanatory. It's a very rudimental system. The autopilot here is this little part of the board here. So we've got engage, disengage there, and turn knobs. They're mechanically locked on the ground, weight on wheels. But we're going to depart with turn and flick that to IAS hold, and then we're going to go to nav lock in order to go to our INS navigational systems after takeoff. Overhead panel's a bit clunky as well, as you can see. We've got the auto brake up here, which is a bit random. We flop that to RTO in a little while. Certainly that crew manager is going to help us learn the aeroplane. You can actually watch it work through its flows as well, which is quite cool. We've got no smoking signs. Pop the seatbelt signs on as well if you wish, but with cargo I shan't worry about that. And we've got our transponder up here, so I'm going to just set this to 2000, like so. And we've set up all of our lighting as required as well. It's all on bright at the moment. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? This cage, artificial horizon standby instrument. Not as free-flowing as you may expect there. And then let's have a look at the INS. So I'm going to leave it on the right of the screen because I want to show you guys the charts as well. Super important. So we've got a lot to do here, and we've first got to tell the aeroplane where we are currently positioned. Before that we need the charts, and we also need our parking stand coordinate page. Now we know we're stand Echo 14, which is here, if I draw on the map there. So we have a little look now, Echo 14 through Echo 16. There's our coordinates that we're going to have to put in. So we're going to put the INS on to a line, and we're also now going to move the scroll wheel across to POS, and you can notice there we've got north, left and east on the right. The dials there, we've got NESW for northeast southwest. If we were south of the equator, we would press S to revert that to south instead of north. But we're north, we're going to leave that as it is. And then we've got 04414 and then west, which we'll need to switch. So we're going to go north 04414. Insert, and then it goes to the right hand side. We need to go to west, so we're going to press W for west. It switches between east and west, and again 074081. Insert, and now we're basically telling the aeroplane where we are in the world. If we go to status on the right, that should begin to count down from 95, and it should count down to align the INS. Then we'll go through waypoint insertion very briefly because it's only a preview. Appreciate you guys seeing lots of stuff, and we'll dive more into it during live streams naturally as well as we start to learn the airplane as well as possible. Awesome, now it's aligned, we get the ready nav sort of green light. We can flick that across to nav. That light goes out, and we can think about waypoints. So 0 is our current position. We're going to flick that to 1, and again this is where it gets quite tricky. You've got to kind of work out what to do depending on your departures. I've actually picked a tough one for myself really. We're going to go 14 right, initially outbound, 205 till turn completes over Swasha VOR on an inbound radial of 267. And then we're going off to Orega down there. So we've got a couple of RNAV waypoints to worry about. I'm going to ignore Swasha. I'm going to use that to sort of cross over Swasha using the VOR system, nav1. And then we're going to go outbound 251 degrees to BO527. And then working out to Orega. So, for that we need to look at our Simbury flight plan. And this is where you're going to spend probably quite a bit of time on the ground. Swasha VOR is here, so we're going to ignore that. That's the VOR. Pop the little that in red there. Bravo Oscar 527. So waypoint 1, waypoint 2, waypoint 3, waypoint 4, Papayan VOR, and then we've got Mercedes VOR down the bottom before heading into Antonio Narita. So we've got then waypoint 5, which is also a VOR, waypoint 6, and then we've got the airport finally, Antonio Narita, which we could put in as waypoint 7 potentially. It depends on the arrival procedures. After the Mercedes VOR, outbound 213, and then we've got that 14.7 DME for the ILS approach, like so. So we now just need to put in all of this data, and we could in fact put in the Swasha VOR because we've got 9 slots. So if you wanted to, you could put in Swasha as well and then work from there if you wish. It's whatever works best for you folks really. You can see there we've used 7 slots and we've got 9 available. So to insert the waypoints, we're going to go waypoint on the INS, as you can see there, and then we're just going to put it in like we did for the INS using the coordinates. So we've got November for north 04236, insert west 074409, insert waypoint 2 north 0418 6. You've got to make sure this is super accurate because otherwise you'll end up flying somewhere entirely different. So 0418.6, and then we've got west 074409. So west 07 4507. So on and so forth. Okay, so here, flicking across, 8's free, 9's free, but we've got all the way to 7, look, with our waypoints. And our POS is all aligned there. Waypoint 0 is our current position. Waypoint 1 is the one we're going to go to next. And then we've got automatic mode for that set. Just as well, so you can hear the fire test noise. There's the bell. Really old school. And without further ado, we've got Nav 1, Nav 2, all of that set ready to go. INS is already, we've got the outbound course initially from the departure here at Bogota, 14 right, set ready to go. And we're going to now press the before start procedure flow. We're going to use GSX to get the pushback system all ready. Close all the doors. Everything's ready. Going to reset the speeds. For reference, right at the top, that's our ignition panel there for the engine start sequence, and the overhead panel there. We'll start 3 first, followed by 1, and then 2 in the middle to kick things off. Everything else looks ready. I'm going to pop the beacon light on, and then using that crew device, I'm going to press before start pre-flow. And then you should see, if I zoom on out here, we might see a couple of things being clicked for us. We'll pick spot 50. There's the stall warning. Power brakes off. And that's the flight engineer doing a whole load of pre-flight as well for us, which is very important. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go engine start. 3 to ground. N2 rises. Wait till about 20, then we throw the fuel in. Looking good. There's 20. 3, run. You might have spotted as well, tail strikes could be quite easy in this thing. It's not particularly aerodynamic by the looks of it, is it? That before start checks went green there, so that's why we can start the engines. There are things that you need to watch, like the ignition temperatures and all that sort of stuff, but that's stable now. Let's go engine 1. We can close number 3. And we'll watch the instruments from this time from the flight deck. High altitude here, Bogota, 8,300 feet MSL, QNH 1036. N2320, 1 run. Let's watch that fuel temperature rise, the EGT. And engines 1 and 3, you don't want them to go, I think, over 420, but engine 2 has got a slightly higher rate. It's a little high. Custom pushback here at this V-Pilot's Designs Bogota scenery, really nice. It's on the MSFS marketplace. That looks good. Power brake set. There she is. APU, by the way, really weird. It's under the belly of the aeroplane by the main carriage, because there's obviously no space in the rear of the aircraft because it's got the exhaust for engine 2 going through it. I'd like to see some improvements to maybe the paint textures. These seem quite luminous for some reason on my RTX 4090. But what I do like is the weathering and the old school look of the rest of the aircraft as well. But this is a preview version, of course, so not everything you see today will be in the release variants. There will be tweaks and changes made, no doubt. Okay, after start checks there, and we can press that just to get the assistance of the flight engineer. We're going to set flap 15. There's no arming, by the way, kind of the speed brake, in the sense that you don't really arm it to then throw it back, but it is an option they're looking at adding in the future currently. And there is an auto throttle on this, but again, that's an optional extra for a lot of airlines. Most didn't really use it, but it's only to be used in cruise. It's not a normal auto throttle like you might think. Another stall warning check there. I've set up a couple of custom views as well for today, so you can see control surface checks, the dirty flaps. The window is openable, by the way, and you can hear now the noise outside. It's quite loud, isn't it? Which is quite a cool little feature, and you should, once you're rolling... Oh, that noise. You should be able to get a little bit of idle taxi, really. Rudders feel very sensitive. There's the flap system and slats. Slats 2 and 5 are basically slats really more than anything else. From flap 15 you get the flap extension, and that's the bit that takes a while. So going from flap 5 to 15 can take, I don't know, like 30 seconds approximately. With that in mind, you've got to really kind of be on top of the game, really. And like the IAE Airbus A320s, we've got an EPA value there. That pressure ratio is the EPA value, and that's what we kind of want to set for the departure. If we look at here, takeoff EPR 2.14, that should give us a takeoff M1 of 93.20%. Takeoff trim 575, which, because we'd already clicked earlier, is already set there, that little arrow. Alright, at the hold, bit of a crosswind for us today, should be quite spicy. We're going to set our lights as required, and then we're going to press the before takeoff checks, and the flight engineer, sorry, is going to work at doing all the rest for us as we begin to line up. It's got quite a cool presence, this aircraft. It's a really unique design, isn't it? It's quite cool. So nice to have something a bit more retro, a bit classic, a bit different. And offers quite a bit of a challenge as well. This is really hands-on, by the way, folks. Hopefully it will come across during this preview. Lining up 1-4, right then. Full takeoff checks are green. Thank you, crew manager. Let's hide it. And lining up. Use a bit more of the runway. High altitude ops. We want to use as much of this as we can. That view's really far back. I'm not a fan of that. As you can see, I've got set my own custom view that just zooms in a little bit more. Okay. I think we're pretty much ready to go. We're about to find out. We'll just check the transponders on. it is on, and it's on altitude reporting. Let's put it on TARA, why not? On the brakes then, we're going to start to increase the power. Have a listen. Power set. Stick forward as well, I should add. Speed's now alive. See, look how slow the aeroplane is to accelerate. 80 knots. Got a call out there from a first officer. Nice. Still accelerating. We're going to use a lot of this runway, folks. Just releasing that nose wheel pressure gently back to neutral. We should have rudder authority. Here we go. V1, rotate. Hold in 10. Maintaining that centre line still. Okay, look at that. Positive rate, gear up. There's the trees. Get the gear up. There it is, travelling. Okay, what have we got here? 180. Lap 5. A bit of hand flying here to be done. Through our relevant speeds. We can bring that nose down slightly. %, M1. Really full on this. Here we go, lock mode, speed mode. Quite often you'll hear, like we did on departure, something start to trigger a siren. And in the Boeing, in the Airbus, and the Dreamliner, you will hear an audible alert, and you can just look at the ECAM page to see what the status issue is. We don't have that luxury in this aeroplane, unfortunately. So it is on us then effectively to try and deal with it and work out what the problem is. And it's just taken me about 9 minutes to work out what the issue was. It turns out the crew manager during the before takeoff checks, so the after start checks, hadn't clicked one switch for the hydraulics, one of the hydraulic lines, so there was an issue there. But we're all good, we're back in, and we're heading towards Bogota 552, that RNAV waypoint that we've inserted the coordinates for, which is there. It should automatically switch from to leg 1 to leg 2. We could do a waypoint change 0 to 1, which would be more reasonable, because we could go sort of waypoint change 0, 1, insert, and that will tell the aeroplane that actually I want to go to Bo 552 first before VAPON. So that's one of the things that I forgot to mention at the start. It's all new, isn't it? So we're all getting used to the aeroplane and its quirks. But in the air, there she is. Oh, she's even dipping a wing for us. So yeah, massive handful. It's a little bit like a jet version of a DC-6, probably that level of complexity really, compared to some of the more modern aircraft that we've been flying in more recent times in the sim, but it looks really quite cool, doesn't it? No idea how I'm going to pull this approach off, flying into a really high altitude airfield. So I've got to get it right first time. But I'm in the right livery for it. So now you can see it's just changed from waypoint 1 to waypoint 2 as the next leg on our journey. You can actually flick across here without affecting the INS, so you can just change some waypoints if you need to. If you get a different route from an ATC, for example, that's fine. You can use this. Now it's going from leg 2 to 3. So there's our current position. We've departed, little right turn, and then accelerated out like so. And we were on our way to Vapom, then Orega there, like it's displayed there in that little cross section cut out there. And then we're going to go all the way across to Mercedes VOR 116.3, which we'll need to tune and start tracking shortly. We've got the beautiful Colombian landscape down below us, and you can already see a lot of terrain here on the map indicating roughly the challenge that's ahead of us. We'll go into that in a little while as well. So having a look at the clipboard then, folks, we want to make sure that we reach the ILS at 9,000 feet. So we can click in here, type in 9,000, and it will give us our required distance and the required vertical speed. You can press Managed Descent, which is a really handy function which will begin to help, it will basically help you out in the descent phase of flight, which is quite nice. Almost reaching our top of climb. The current live weather at Antonio Norino is not available, sadly, so we don't actually know what the weather is. But the previous METAR that was available suggested winds of 120 at 5, variable between 050 and 170, scattered cloud at 2,800 feet, temperature 23, QNH 1019. And again, as a reminder, there's no auto throttle, so it's down to us to sort this out. CIVA INS is doing quite a nice job, just sequencing itself through the waypoints. We're going waypoint 4 to 5 now, and if we want to refresh our memory at any point, we can view the SimBrief OFP in Navigraph and our little annotations. So waypoint 5 is Popayan VOR. You could, if you want to, just as a bit of a tip, actually set your top of descent there as a waypoint. So after 4, Orega, you could set waypoint 5 as your top of descent if you want to, because you've got the coordinates for it, and that should then allow you to reach that waypoint and go, okay, now I need to start descending because I've reached this waypoint and the CIVA INS has just sequenced to the next waypoint, which would be the Popayan VOR. Just for help with situational awareness and all that sort of stuff, it's really key to stay ahead of this aeroplane, and it can be a bit challenging at times. We're flying into Antonio Norino, which is an airport in a valley. Just to show you the Navigraph charts again, that is going to be the approach to runway 12 to runway 20 that we're going to face on 02. It's similarly quite stunning, but also really quite tricky. Elevation 5,951 feet above mean sea level. There it is on the edge of a cliff. So no room for error, super exciting. We'll do this on a live stream as well to really throw ourselves into it. And this is made by Takeoff Scenery, I think it is, Takeoff Scenery on the marketplace for Microsoft Flight Simulator. While we're in flight, we can have a little walk. We can pop our head under here, and I can show you guys the cargo section. So currently this can't be edited. You can see a bit of light bleed through there as well. We can't change the cargo. It is what it is. But hopefully they may look at doing that in the future. And there it is. A really nice internal cargo hold area, actually, to be fair, and it's all got kind of the distance load areas, the load markings and things as well throughout the fuselage. Not a massive fan of the horses, but you can hear them. Appreciate some people might really like that. And then there's a door at the back. Which leads to the rear stairs. just to show you guys nighttime textures with the kind of head torch thing on, which I can't seem to turn off. But it looks really good, doesn't it? The various panels, the illumination of the flight deck and all that sort of thing. Look at this. Really snazzy. You get a really nice feel for the retro style of aeroplane that this is. And then on the outside, strobes, nav and beacon flashing away, bouncing off the fuselage. And we'll go back to live time. Really early in the morning here in Colombia, about 6:30 local time. So coming up to stop descent, I'm going to get the clipboard ready. 18 miles, we want 11 roughly, and I'll show you what the start descent bit does there for that managed descent mode. We've got in our target of 9,000, which is only 3,000 above the ground, and it's given us a required vertical speed of 1,600 foot per minute. We could either press start descent for the managed descent mode, or we could just set it to 1,600 foot per minute rate of descent using the vertical speed indicator in the autopilot and set thrust accordingly. But let's go into managed descent now, about a mile beforehand. So down we go. Naturally we need to bring our throttle back with it, and if you bring it all the way back below the idle there, right to proper idle, you'll get an audible alert. So you need to set it just above, kind of treat it like a ground idle and a flight idle, if you will. So we've got about maybe 10 minutes till the most challenging approach I've done in a long time in an aeroplane that I'm not massively familiar with, and I'm still very much learning, the early stages of learning for that matter as well. Hopefully you are enjoying this video. Don't forget to give us a like, hit subscribe if you've not done so already. The links are going to be in the description down below for the FSS 727 if you want to get your hands on this old school retro jet. Certainly so far very impressive. A lot of user error on my part, but it's all a learning process, and it offers a bit of a challenge that we haven't had in some of the more modern aircraft. They've done a good job on the exterior, and the sounds are quite exquisite as well so far, and I like a lot of the features here that are designed to help you learn the aeroplane slowly. Okay, I'll be honest, I've had a little problem with the autopilot. It's completely mechanically locked. I can't solve that for some reason. I've circled for 10 minutes trying to work it out, so I'm now hand flying the entirety of this approach. Just come left, we'll just come around all of that mountainous area there. The approach brings us very tight to that, and now just kind of working to hand fly. There's the runway on the cliff, just working to get back on profile here, intercept the glide slope and hand fly her in. We're flap 30, no auto brake, gears down 3 green. Just trying to keep it trimmed 7.5 so that we can get on the glide slope nicely. Look at this terrain, folks. Splendid. Let that nose start to come down a bit. Turbulence is playing havoc with me here. We're now basically just flying it as a visual approach. We're using the needles down below the primary flight display there just to help give us reference. Quite a bit of crosswind though, I think. I certainly feel like there's quite a bit of crosswind, and there's no indications of it, so we really don't know. VREF for all the bugs, everything is set, so we're just conscious of not going too slow on this approach. And again, don't want to flare too keenly, because we'll end up tail striking the jets. This is really bumpy. Very variable winds. Got a bit of work to do for the glide slope. The terrain doesn't help because it's so undulating. You guys, if you do purchase the 727, then definitely try and fly into here. Let us know how you get on. It's a pay west scenery from the MSFS marketplace by Takeoff though, granted. But my goodness, look at this. She handles well for hand flying, a little bit twitchy on roll, for what I've found.
500.
But otherwise, okay. Here we go.
400.
Feels like this is a bit of a steep approach. It's 3 degrees though.
200.
Looking ahead.
100. 15, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Touchdown. Okay, reversers are engaged. Nose wheel comes down. And manual brakes. £215 foot per minute, it's not bad. Bearing in mind I had all those issues. Right at the centre line, 1.34G, nice and firm. That's what we like. There's that windsock flicking across, it's rolling in over the hills there. We'll turn at the end and head in. There she is, in all her glory. You notice there the tail wheel, sorry, the nose wheel doesn't really rotate all that much, something I've noticed on the model. Okay, after landing checks, before we dive into that, I'm going to go to this view, and we're going to retract the flaps. Sorry about the awful horsey noise, I'm really not a fan of that. We do this. Can we see any of the actuators? No. Oh yes, there we go, look at that. There's the spring. We'll park right in the corner over there, so what we'll do is I'll go straight across to the furthest point and in. APU starting. Do a quick blast of the reverser. Just so you can hear the sounds with the doors, the windows open. But otherwise really good fun, really quite a handful to get your head around and learn as well, which is quite cool. Sounds are so impressive. Okay, park brakes set. APU's got power, that's good. So that's all on and running. Looking at the first officer's bit, so we'll go to the shutdown checks. We'll turn the engines off. So there you have it, folks. The FSS Boeing 727 freighter for Microsoft Flight Simulator, releasing imminently, as we said, for €40, 42 US dollars, depending on the currency wherever you live. Convert that as required. Initially, it's going to be available exclusively on the Aerosoft store. I would recommend maybe waiting a week, and then at that point it will be available on Contrail, and I'll share the link down in the description below. Much prefer the Contrail web shop, and it's a really good way of supporting the channel as well with your purchases at no extra cost too. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know how you get on post-release with the aeroplane, and hope to see you join me for a live stream as we continue the learning process in this mighty 727. But in the meantime, as always, thank you very much for flying. I hope you've enjoyed the route, and I'll see you very soon. Take care.